Score chasing games, the point of the game is not to score or chase. The point of the game is to interact with the gameplay. Welcome to Games Over Coffee Consulting. This is where indie developers submit their games and I do my best to give feedback on their game design. Today we're talking about a game called Super Astrovade. Super Astrovade is a unique take on the bullet hell type of game. It incorporates melee attacks. That's the only way to destroy enemies, is by smashing into them, basically. I went on like a big study trying to find out if this type of game has existed before. I'm like, certainly there's been some sort of arena... The trailer started playing. That's a dope soundtrack. I was thinking certainly there's been some sort of arena hack and slash game, and to my knowledge, there isn't really. I only found two. One was called Cubers, and then the other one was called Breakpoint, and Breakpoint we'll actually talk about later on. Whenever someone submits a game to me, they have an experience that they want to portray in their game. This person said they wanted to distill the intense thrill of evasion from a bullet hell while also using tactical positioning to attack. I'm hoping the push-pull experience would be similar to Pac-Man, which was an inspiration. Interesting inspiration that you have from Pac-Man, this push-pull experience. And what that means, or at least what I think it means, is that you're doing this thing where you get really close to an enemy in order to damage it or in order to attack it, and then pull away really fast. So push in and then pull away. Taking big risk for a big reward. But there's a catch here. There's not really that big of a reward for risking so much. While playing this game, which by the way, I do have to say that it was really difficult to try to even find out what the mechanic was. I like the idea that you just have words appear in the middle of the screen that says, boost to attack. I like the idea of that, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, at least not to me at the time. When I looked at that, I tried boosting into enemies and it just killed me, so I didn't know what that meant. What it means is to reverse yourself onto an enemy and then boost away from it. I would say a tutorial is necessary, a simple little short animation of showing the ship go to an enemy and boost away to kill it. It was a lot of fun to use the mechanic at first. Everything in this game is very tight. The graphics look really good, the sound design is on point, the music's great, the movement feels really good. Everything in this game feels very on point. However, although fun and although interesting, it gets monotonous after a while. I wanted to talk about the game loop a little bit. Gameplay loops by themselves don't actually mean anything to the experience. They're not meaningful by themselves. They need some sort of rules and limitations in place in order to make the player yearn to play more of the game. And that's what a lot of people would call the hook. Finding the hook in your game is very difficult. Playtesting is usually involved to try to figure out what it is that people are latching onto versus what they're not. While I'm playing this game, Super Astrovade, I don't really feel a hook very much. Not for me anyway. I saw some of the reviews on Steam and they both called this game a score chaser. Hey, so as I'm editing, I found out that the reviews that I'm talking about are actually not on this game. It's actually for Breakpoint. There's a bunch of people saying this is a high score chaser, but I still think the point stands that I'm going to make because Super Astrovade does very heavily put in score as the thing that you're chasing. So just wanted to put that out there. Score chasing games, the point of the game is not to score or chase. The point of the game is to interact with the gameplay, right? When I'm playing Geometry Wars, I'm not thinking about the high score. I might be thinking about the high score if I've played it enough. When I'm first introduced to the game, right? When I'm first playing Geometry Wars and it's right there in front of my face for the first time ever, I'm not thinking, I want to get the biggest score possible. When I'm playing Devil Daggers for the first time, I'm not thinking, I got to get the highest score possible. That's the second thing that comes up, right? The first thing that pulls me in is the gameplay itself. For Geometry Wars and Devil Daggers, it's all about killing as many enemies as possible. And because killing enemies is fun, and there's a little bit of a completion kind of feeling in there because you beat waves of enemies in Geometry Wars, and you beat big object spawners in Devil Daggers, there's this idea, get better and better and better because you're reaching little goals. In a game that is about collecting stuff, like Super Crate Box. Super Crate Boxes is about collecting boxes. The entire game, that's exactly what you're trying to do. And when you first begin that game, you're thinking, how do I collect as many boxes as possible? Super Astrovade is not about score chasing. I wouldn't say so. I would say the gameplay is about killing enemies because that's what the game revolves around. However, it doesn't really feel like I'm getting much of a reward from killing enemies. A lot of game designers will say you have to provide a reward for a player in order for them to want to progress forward. While that's true, it really depends on the type of reward that you're giving them. If we look at Doom 2016, Doom 2016 has a great push and pull system. You have to kill enemies from afar, you know, using your guns and whatnot, but then there's glory kills where you get their health low enough and then you go in for a melee attack. You get a lot more stuff from them. You get more ammo and you get more health as opposed to just killing them with a gun. And what that does is it incentivizes the player to try to take bigger risks in order to get more upgrades. I think that's the thing that's lacking in Super Astrovade's push and pull system, is I don't really feel a gameplay reward for going in and taking those big risks, because you do get a reward in Super Astrovade, but all it is a score multiplier, which is fine. You know, you can have score multipliers, but it doesn't feel like I'm getting anything from that gameplay wise. For example, Doom 2016, if we were to replace those glory kill systems, instead of getting ammunition and health, you got just a score, what would happen? I imagine that the player, after killing glory kills over and over, not only would it feel monotonous, but it would feel like the risk is not worth the reward. After so many kills, why would I want to risk going really close to an enemy in order to get more points? That wouldn't continue my gameplay. Other games that don't have a kind of gameplay reward for continuing, like Pac-Man, for example, have other ways of rewarding the player. For example, in Pac-Man, you have level completions, right? Or in Tetris, for example, you also have different levels. In Pac-Man, once you eat all the dots in the maze, you've completed something. So that's what I feel like is missing in Super Astrovade. There's not enough feeling of completion or feeling of gameplay rewards in this game that drives me forward. When I play this game, I find myself going after the bigger enemies the most. It's the most fun to feel like I've completed killing a bigger enemy. And I feel like it would make more sense in this game to have enemies attack in big waves, where you have like a wave 1, wave 2 kind of system, where the player is challenged to kill a bunch of enemies in a certain wave and then move on. If we look at a game like Breakpoint, which is similar to this game, one of the only games that's similar to this game, not only do we get bigger weapons as we go through, but we also have different waves of enemies. So we have kind of two gameplay completion things there. And then on top of that, we have the score multiplier that feels like it's a greater reward, but it's after the gameplay reward that we had in the beginning. We go into the game, we kill enemies, we get rewarded for killing enemies by getting bigger weapons. Then we have the feeling of completion by destroying certain enemies one time and then certain enemies the next time. Once we're done, once we've died, then we find out how many points we got during that run, and that provides us with the motivation to continue on to a second game. I do want to be clear, though, that you don't need to have different waves of enemies, because it's not always that way in every game, right? If we look at Vampire Survivors or Super Crate Box or Devil Daggers, they have just endless modes. That's all they have. If you look at Vampire Survivors, it has a gameplay mechanic of producing upgrades very, very slowly throughout the entire game, and so the player feels like they're gaining something with each new wave of enemy that comes in. Super Astrovade just feels like it needs a little bit more of a gameplay motivation in order to drive the player forward, other than just points. I think points are great for a second tier thing, for something to happen on top of gameplay, but I feel like the gameplay needs to come first. Thank you, Matthew Kelly, for submitting this game. I noticed that you said in your questionnaire that game design is one of your favorite subjects of creating games, so join the Discord, because the Discord, we have discussions about this stuff all the time. By the way, the graphics in this game are so dope. I didn't talk about how much I love this game, but I really like the graphics in this game. I like the music. I like so much about the game. It was a lot of fun to interact with. I like the style of the CRT kind of rounded style that we have going. If you'd like to see how this genre has been made by other people, definitely play Breakpoint to try to figure out how other people have designed their game in this same kind of style, because it's very difficult to see what this kind of style is like in other games, because like I said before, it's a very unique take on this kind of bullet hell genre. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this kind of content, you can check out my main channel, Games Over Coffee, where I talk about this in AAA games. Thank you for watching. See you later.